I'm Charlie Bride of Gold Derby, and as part of our Meet the Experts television animation panel, we are talking with Brian Leif Hansen from the Peacock original show In the Know. The first question I wanted to ask was, what do you think made stop motion the best animated medium to use for this show?
So there's theories, and I think what really fits the NPR sort of like theme, the sort of national radio theme, is the sort of slightly old-fashioned, tactile way that is sort of that feels. And that feels very much like that could be performed by puppets. The real reason why it is puppets is because Mike Judge always wanted to do a puppet show. He originally started with stop motion, but felt it was like too difficult and too expensive, so he moved into 2D. But yeah, that's probably really why it's became stop motion.
And to the look of your show's protagonist, Lauren Caspian, that's voiced by the show's co-creator, Zach Woods. How did you nail down the look for Lauren Caspian? Because he has such a distinctive look to him.
Yeah, so the 2D version of Lauren Caspian is done by Kevin Lofton. And that is slightly different to the three-dimensional puppet that we have, because that starts with a clay sculpt, and then you look at that, and then you change things, and then until you've got something that is more in line with Zach and Brandon is looking for. I think the original drawings were a little bit crazier, and Lauren was sort of brought into a less sort of crazy look. He still looks pretty crazy, but he became sort of more in the real world after he became a puppet.
I'm curious. What sort of how is the craziness of him reduced from the 2D to the pup to?
He was sort of much more triangular in his face, and there was like versions of him where he said really like the forehead was like really big, like bigger than it is now, and really triangular, like really pointy chin.
With the two creators of the show coming from improv background, it would make sense that while they're doing the voices, they would try out many different things with improvisation. And does the improvisational nature of some of the dialogue add any difficulty to the animation?
No, I wouldn't think so. No, I don't think so. It's really nice to have something that's alive to animate to, because that's really all you have. As we all know, the characters sort of mainly comes from the piece of dialogue, and if you have great dialogue, you have much easier to create a great character. So I wouldn't think that made it difficult, but if anything, it made it a little bit more fresher, so it's easier to work with. So it was like all the quirks and stuff stood out clear. I wouldn't think that made it more difficult now.
Were any of the scenes challenging to animate? Because I know that, stop motion itself is a very time consuming art. But I was wondering if there were any scenes that were particularly challenging for this show to actually animate.
I wouldn't think so. The sort of universe where these puppet lives is quite contained in the radio stations, so that helps. And I think what we did with the performance was that we let the characters, the sort of Skype, Zoom interviews, some of them, and what I think we used to our advantage was that the characters are sitting down most of the time, so we used instead of using a lot of time and energy to move the puppet around in space, because that is difficult in stop motion, we just spent that energy on the performance, which I think is great. and there is a little bit of running around and stuff, but it's quite limited, so it wasn't a huge task. Something that's difficult in stop motion, but probably in really all animation, is lots of character together, because then there's lots more work. So that's always challenging. Which if you got like 5 or 6 characters in the same shot, then that becomes time consuming.
How long does it usually take to animate one episode of the show?
So we did 6 episodes. They're about like 20 to 25 minutes a piece, and we did it in half a year, which is quite remarkable because there's like 2 hours of footage. But yeah, again, the fact that the characters sitting down and stuff just meant that we could make it create a lot of frames, still with like great performances, but not sweating so much the running around. So yeah, half a year for 6 episodes. So it's, yeah, and we shot. So it's hard to say how long time we spent on each episode, because we probably spent different time on each episode, and also we were shooting multiple episodes at the same time in the same studio. We had about 23 animators working on the show at one time.
It seems that I'm curious as to why, what was behind the decision to keep the guests of the show in live action format and not actually animate those.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think it brings a lot of. So the interviews were made by Zach and Brandon, and it's obviously Lauren is interviewing, so played by Zach Woods. And the way they did that was that they didn't introduce Zach to the celebrity that was interviewed. There was just Brandon that said, "Hi, thanks for doing this. In a moment, Lauren Caspian is going to come on screen and he's going to perform this interview." So they never met Zach Woods. They only met Lauren Caspian, which I think is, and the way that they are acting and reacting to Lauren Caspian, this silly puppet asking these outrageous questions, are just like, I think we get a wonderful performance out of them, which is, not a performance, it's just them reacting to this silly puppet, which I think works really, really well. And then afterwards, Zach came and said, "Thanks for doing this," and stuff. So he was out of character. But yeah, so they only met this Lauren Caspian characters, which I think was a little bit of a genius stroke, because you get these reactions from the interviews that you wouldn't otherwise get if that was just Zach Woods interviewing.
Do you have a personal favorite of the interviews that were done for the series?
Hugh Laurie is pretty good. I really like that performance. Ken Burns is another favorite, I think. Yeah. And just the way that I really like the way that people are reacting to Lauren and his ridiculous mind. Is so wonderful.
And they only thought that it was. Did they thought it was an actual like NPR program when they were being interviewed before? But
no, they didn't know there was like a show. So
okay,
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. See ya.